Informative, interesting, intelligent. President and CEO with the Tucson Metropolitan Chamber, Amber Smith with news from the Chamber.
Hello, and welcome to the August edition of News from the Chamber. I am Amber Smith, the President and CEO of the Tucson Metro Chamber, and we're recording this podcast right here in the Business Radio X studio at Stewart Title on Broadway in Tucson, Arizona. This month's conversation will focus on the construction industry in Tucson. Construction's long been one of the primary industries in Tucson, and according to a recent report, Arizona added an additional 75,300 private sector jobs in the past year, meaning 1 out of every 4 of the new jobs is in the construction industry. Pretty big numbers. So between an increase in the number of housing permits throughout the region, many large-scale projects being built downtown, the announcement of many companies moving into Tucson, the construction industry is experiencing considerable growth. So, to speak about this topic today, we have 3 experts in that industry. I'm going to start with Tim B. He's the Southern Arizona Director for the Arizona Builders Alliance. Tim has a long history in politics, and he served as the Senate President in the Arizona State Legislature in 2007 and was Vice President at the U of A before coming over to ABA. Welcome, Tim.
Pleasure to be here.
And also we have Brad Lloyd. Brad is the Vice President of Lloyd Construction. Brad's father, Bill, started the company back in 1969, and now Brad and his brother, Bill, run the day-to-day operations. Signifying Brad's leadership in construction, he is this year's statewide chairman of the Arizona Builders Alliance. Welcome, Brad.
Happy to be here.
And rounding out our speakers and guests today, we have Miss Alice Templeton, the Business Development Director for Barker Contracting. Alice has extensive experience in construction and public relations, and also has been known to belt out a few tunes from time to time, and you'll note that through her speaking voice. Good afternoon, Alice.
Good afternoon.
All right, let's start with an issue that is near and dear to the Chamber's heart. We are very engaged right now in workforce development. For us, it's not about us putting on programs necessarily, but identifying all of those pieces to the puzzle happening in the area of workforce development and seeing if we can bring all of those things together. So, I'm going to start with Tim. What would you say is the current status of the construction workforce?
So we're hearing it from our members across the board that they need more workers to employ in their companies. And we're facing, I think, what's probably a result of decades of removing programs from the high schools where children have the opportunity to experience the trades. And so our workforce is averaged age between 50 and 70 for a large part of what's out there in the industry. And so we're facing both the results of the need for expanded workforce because of growth in the industry and new jobs being required to meet that growth, but also folks who are choosing to, or they're reaching the point in their careers where they're retiring. And so both of those demands are creating a tremendous need for us.
So would you say, and I'm going to direct this at Brad because you were knee-deep in construction right there during the recession and coming out of it. How did that impact what you've seen in the construction industry? Because what I've been told is there was a huge outflux of those that were in the industry, but due to the recession, then there was everyone leaving to try to basically recreate themselves.
Well, exactly. And during the recession, I was neck deep, to be honest with you. but what has happened, and we're coming back from it slowly, but during the recession, just as you said, people were leaving. There was less and less jobs. The pay scale was less and less, especially in southern Arizona. And it started, as Tim was saying, to be an image problem. And the image that most people have that we're trying to fight or change is that construction workers are uneducated, lowly. They just work out in the sun. And what we're trying to get people to understand is there's a vast, varied opportunity within construction. So what occurred and what is slowly occurring is we're getting people back. And now we have a lot of work. So we're not getting them back fast enough. And we still have quite a deficit of qualified labor in this town.
So Alice, from your point of view at Barker Contracting, would you say that company is experiencing the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. And I'd just like to add that not only, when we do our recruiting, what we're finding is that people aren't necessarily coming back to the construction industry. What we're getting are retired workers who retired early, in 2009, 2010. They just bailed, said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to retire. And now that things are perking up, we're having a lot of success finding people who were fairly young when they retired and they weren't ready. Really, it was kind of a forced retirement, and now they're coming back and they've got great experience. So it's a very valuable, I think, and underrated part of the workforce that we're exploiting as much as possible. Maybe exploiting isn't the best word
Taking
for it.
advantage of.
Well, we're jumping on that opportunity because we're all working and looking really hard.
So let's talk about, you said, great skill sets. What are those skills that companies are looking for that seem to have been lost?
Well, good question. I'll turn that question just a little bit and say, what skill sets can we use that maybe, somebody was doing something else and can be adapted? Detail. It's really nice to get people who are able to read plans really well, and also people who are very proud of the work they do. Brad was talking about we had people who weren't getting a lot of respect. And now I think that we're kind of turning that corner a little bit, and people who maybe didn't necessarily think that their skill set would be good for construction, now they're giving it a second look and thinking, hey, I can make a really good living doing this, and I'm detail-oriented. I can, read plans. Why not do this and make it a really good living at it?
Right. And also, it's communication. It's the ability to speak and be heard and listen. Those are very important.
Absolutely.
The market has changed so much that there is, through technology, the difference in delivery method of projects, going from hard bid to construction manager at risk, negotiations, everything about our business has to do with people. It's no longer just building a building. You no longer go out there and just put your fence up, hide yourself within that fence and build your building. Now you're out, you're involved in the community, you're dealing with the architects, the owners, the user group, and you're dealing with all of them at once. And communication, the ability to use technology, today's technology is huge. So all of these things just bring the perfect person or applicant to your company.
Sounds a little bit, it doesn't quite translate, but soft skills.
Soft skills.
Oh, absolutely. It does translate.
Well, but I think part of it is the technical skills as far as to the detail of being able to read the blueprints. But then as far as the communications part, it's going to be those soft skills, leadership, team work, and all of that.
Well, as Alice said, we can teach a lot of this. Blueprint, we can teach that. We can teach everything there is to be out there, but it's the individual that goes out and does what they say they're going to do. They don't leave a job until it's done, and it's done right. That's what you're looking for. And if you get that, the rest of it you can teach.
So that's been one of the focuses of our efforts and outreach from the Workforce Development Committee at the Arizona Builders Alliance. We've established relationships with the JTED programs and the CTE programs here in Southern Arizona. And all of the instructors understand and work with their students on these soft skills because it is so important. And then they also do not neglect the critical trade skills that they need to have as well. But I was privileged to take some of our members last year to visit some of the classrooms, and every student would shake our hand, look us in the eye, and you could tell the teachers were really placing a focus on that.
So how are you finding talent these days? Well,
like I said, it helps. I think Lloyd Construction certainly has a great reputation. It helps when you have a good reputation. You can try recruiters; they're very expensive, and you get really the best people come from word of mouth. As far as I'm concerned, people know you're a good company. They're looking. They come asking you, if you have any positions available, or we put out the word that we do, and people come to us that way. We do use recruiters occasionally, and then we also have projects nationwide, so we do have to place ads on ZipRecruiter and Indeed and those kinds of services.
Barker, along with Lloyd, we participate with the different high schools, the different career groups. Those are great places to start, to look, to get people pushed into and start tracking them, because you'll know when it's time and you can get them and you can put them on the payroll. Word of mouth is huge, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for people who other people trust.
Absolutely.
And, but there's also you can always go with the .coms, and sometimes you do well. I can't promise all the time, but sometimes you do well.
And it does get expensive, though, sometimes, especially if you're having to fly them in from somewhere else. And it's really easy for people to put things on a resume, and you sit down and you start talking to them, and it doesn't quite work out, and then you've spent a lot of money flying them in, your own time, and so
the Chamber is proud to be able to partner with organizations like ABA and AIA and all of the major construction ones in the community, along with the community college and the university, which will onboard as well. We're really hoping to be able to address those issues. If we can build a no barrier to entry platform to keep those costs down for the employers as well, to be able to do some skills-based matching for both the employer and the talent, that then also identifies how you can close those gaps and be able to get that licensing or credentials from whichever job trainer it is, and more importantly, being able to really translate the skills of our transitioning military members.
Yeah.
Because I think that right there is a huge opportunity of talent that is already skilled up, and we have over 100 transitioning militaries every single month. If we can then be able to place those into great positions, we'll be able to better retain our talent as well.
Yeah, and as you know, Amber, we've been involved in that program.
Yep.
It hasn't quite worked out for us, the way we want it to yet, but we have really high hopes. We understand that, it's way early in the process.
Well, so when you're talking about the, is it the TAPS program? Which one is it?
The workforce, veterans in the workforce.
So what we're hoping to do is utilize programs like that, but centralize being the key word. Yeah. All of the different programs, so that talent has one place to go to where they can set up their profile. They can then trigger other resources available to talent, such as housing, childcare, food security, transportation. So because we know that workforce and being able to have a job and retain it isn't just dependent on having a job. So with this platform that we will be launching specific to the construction industry on the first phase, we'll be able to connect all of those pieces. You set up your profile, translate your skill set, you qualify for X, Y, and Z potentially from our nonprofit community helping in these areas. Here's where you can get the certification, and then it'll be up to the employers on that part. So I think it's really, the adage, it takes a village. And we want to be able to, be the downtown of the village, essentially.
Well, and Amber, I was thank you for including ABA in that conversation early on, and I enjoyed being a part of your meeting you held earlier about that. And I think has a huge opportunity. We appreciate the Chamber taking a leadership role and including organizations like ours, and really focusing on construction as really the first tier of that, but then being able to broaden that across all the sectors. I think that's going to be huge to be able to pull all that together. So thank you.
Amber, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a program that is really near and dear to my heart, which is Construction Kids Build.
Yes.
And so that program was started in conjunction with the AIA.
Yep.
And so basically what it takes middle school children, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and it's a competition, and it's open to any middle school student in metropolitan
Yep.
Tucson area. And basically it's a competition. They have to design structures, and it gets incorporated into the curriculum. So it's important that teachers sign up for it early. And then that transitions into the Kids Build program, which is University of Arizona Architecture, Planning, Landscape Architecture College. And so it's really good. It takes, I think the whole program, the time frame is about a year.
So we absolutely appreciate this. It's a conversation on the future pipeline. And to Brad's point about how the construction industry, the perception of what those positions are changed, and then you lose people in the workforce. Because what we are working to do is being able to have career exploration down to 6th, 7th grade.
Mm-hmm. That's when you need to get them.
And then we'll have day in the life videos, which we actively talked about at the last meeting, because there are some funds. Again, we're trying to centralize all of those different efforts, put them in one place, because then if we can get those career day in the life videos for these kids to be able to look exactly what is that pathway to get to here, especially for our kids that are in poverty and going to college is not, they can't even think that far. I mean, that is not a reality to them in their minds. But if we can show them how they can get from here to here and get a great career, then this middle skills gap that we have right now in our community, we can be able to pull those up from poverty to fill those skills and then beyond for this future pipeline. So on that future pipeline, let's talk about major projects going on in the community. What are you guys building these days?
Well, over at Lloyd, we've been pretty blessed. We've got quite a few things going on. At the Tucson Community Center, we're replacing the ice rink, and it's very exciting. And that's the only ice rink in Tucson, and it's important. We have to.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, go figure. But we kind of have to get it done because we have to play hockey pretty soon here.
The season almost.
Yeah, so we're rushing, but it's an exciting, wonderful job. We also are working on the historic courthouse, and what makes that so just wonderful is things. Tucson has such a great history. Dillinger spent days in court there, and it's just a fantastic building. Monier, which is out in the Mercado district. That's a mixed use, not historic or anything, but it's new, ground up retail residential project.
Well, it's infill development.
It's awesome, and it's needed. And
are those apartments or condos?
Those are apartments.
Okay.
And then we finishing up a couple projects in the Oro Valley, one for the university, which would be their veterinary medicine school, and one for the police department in Oro Valley. Finishing up some work for El Rio, their southeast clinic, and we're just now getting into some dorm work for the university. Got some school work going on in Benson and some work at TMC. It's just been a wonderful time.
So you got all kinds of public-private sector work. There's quite
work.
diverse.
Yeah, it's great.
Alice, what's Barker got going on?
I was thinking what would be interesting, and we're doing a Roadhouse Cinemas.
Oracle and Ina.
Yeah,
yes.
Oracle and River. Oracle
Awesome.
and River.
Yep.
But the project I wanted to tell you about, that's a ground up. And the cool thing about that is that it's not just...
Aside from the obvious.
Yeah. Well, it's going to have an arcade, and they want to advertise their restaurant as a standalone restaurant too, so they want to have really good food there.
Great.
Which I thought was really cool. But the project I wanted to talk about was one we just finished, or we're finishing up in Phoenix, where it's an old Toys R Us building. And
Adaptive reuse.
And I thought it's a great project, and we had to dig down, because obviously the theater seats have to slant down. And so everyone's really excited and happy about that one. We also just recently were awarded the Saudita Advanced Manufacturing Technology building, otherwise known lovingly as SAMTech, which the town of Saudita is really excited about, and I promised I'd mention that because, and it's a great project.
And for the listeners, SAMP is actually an excellent example, Southern Arizona Manufacturing Partners, on workforce development, public-private sector partnerships.
Yeah.
Of which there was a need that came out of the manufacturing industry. They all aligned together and worked with Pima County One Stop to get some curriculum developed and be able to close some gaps. So a phenomenal example of how if we all work together on these workforce needs, that we can really achieve some great things.
Yeah, and I think the last one I'll bring up is the Epiroc, which used to be Atlas Copco.
Yep.
You're very familiar with that
very
project. Yeah, and that's down by the airport. And so we've got we built the original building, and now we're adding on to that. It's fairly large. It's a good project.
It's a great win for Tucson.
Yeah, because that involves a lot of jobs.
It does, but I think it's also a testimonial about our community, and I think that that's a really important point. Is we host the Talent Attraction Task Force, and it's all about community branding. What do people and companies really like about Tucson? And we've got our brand, Tucson Means Business, and we're getting it out there. So really, the expansion of Epiroc, the projects that you and Brad are outlining, the numbers of them. And then if we brought Tim in on the conversation with his numbers of membership-based companies, you're talking dozens and dozens of companies. It's a testament that companies like doing business here.
Yeah.
And they want to expand, and we are welcoming to that as well. So, Brad, 50 years of operation. You don't look a day over 50.
No, definitely not. Now, my father started it. We're so proud and we're so blessed. My father started the company in 1969 with an old Ford Bronco and just
the Bronco's making a comeback. So
yeah, exactly.
All these things come full circle.
I know. Yeah, exactly. And one of his first projects was. What was it? It was on Mount Lemmon. It was the Girl Scout restroom, and he and one of our superintendents now mixed the concrete up on the mountain for that by hand to do the job. And it's kind of funny that superintendent is still with us even today.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been blessed to maintain a pretty good retention of our employees.
I think I saw that you were recently featured in our fantastic local quarterly magazine, Biz Tucson, with a whole company highlight.
Correct.
And there was a whole. I mean, I remember that was something that stuck with me, was the longevity of employees, which is a huge testament to the leadership of the company.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I don't take credit. It comes from my father. My father was the one that has built the template that we follow, and it's pretty easy. Just do what you say you're going to do, and treat everybody like family. And once you've done that, it kind of all works out in the end.
Well, that's the foundation of respect right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the 50 years, of course, you haven't been a part of it during that entire time, but what would you say has been the largest changes in the industry?
Well, all right. I think the largest change in the industry in 50 years is also an incredibly beneficial change, and that would be switching from the hard bid process to the construction manager at risk or design build process. I mean, what it does is it brings you to a collaborative sense. It makes the most sense in the world to involve the contractor, the engineers, the users, the architects, everybody, and get them all in one room and talk about not just what you want it to look like, but how you want it to be used, how you want it to function, flow, and then you ask us, the contractors, what's the most cost-effective way to do this? How do you put this together? Is this possible? What materials are? What are they costing right now? And that process is just an amazing innovation that has happened, and I'm just proud to be a part of it. I love every bit of it, and I think that change from the hard bid, the old just get a set of drawings and come 2:00 on Wednesday, low bid gets it.
Yeah, and you get what you pay for,
and
too.
you get what you pay for. To a situation where everybody's worked together.
And hard bid wasn't always the lowest cost.
Oh, no. Hard bid has proven, there's been studies that have proven over and over again that design, build, and construction management are an exceptional savings on the overall towards what somebody would bid a hard bid job at.
Yeah, we wish everybody would do it.
And everyone doesn't. No?
It's hard to understand. We had to fight this battle a couple decades ago at the legislature and got this established, and then not this last legislative session, but the one before, legislators who thought they were going to save money put in the hard bid, snuck it into the budget last night. And then we spent this last legislative session trying to educate lawmakers about why it was important to retain what we had before. And lawmakers believed that, and we were able to get that overturned again. So that was a legislative victory for us this last year. But it just showed us the importance of continuing that education process so that people can understand exactly, the value of not going the direction of hard bid, but keeping the design build.
See, that right there is a perfect example of why Lloyd Construction has been a member and of the ABA for as long as they have. They truly work. The ABA was the impetus behind turning over that bill, and that bill was specifically aimed towards K through 12. And there is no place other than that is more in need of construction manager at risk or design build than K through 12.
So, since a lot of our listeners are likely not in the industry, walk it through for me, please. The difference between the hard bid, at risk, and then design build.
You want me to take this? All right, I'll take this. Seems like I'm talking a lot. All right. So the hard bid is basically, as I said before, you'll receive a set of drawings. Everybody gets a set of drawings and specifications. And then they're given a time and a day. And they, at that time in the day, exactly, you turn in a price.
Right.
And what that turns into is kind of an adversarial situation because you had to be low. You went as hard as you could to cut as much as you could off of that job to still make a profit and build the building. So then now you're low and you start to realize that the drawings aren't complete. And that's not the architect's fault. Everybody always says the contractor makes jokes about architects. Well, everybody makes jokes about contractors, so it's the same thing. But no, nobody's perfect. So there will always be mistakes. Now, with a hard bid process, the mistake turns into what is called a change order.
Right.
And a change order is no longer hard bid. You already have your subcontractor. You already have everybody involved. So there's no competition on that. And that's where the money could get higher than it should be.
Yeah, and I'll just add that it just leads to finger pointing.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure
lot
there's
of finger
probably some
pointing.
contractors that probably earned a reputation for undercutting when you would know that they would change order their way through to profit.
Yeah, or whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Is it
So
and then the person who's the owner or the buyer is wondering, well, this isn't the quality of what I was expecting because somebody may have cut corners on product and then more change orders.
Right.
So strangely
it
enough,
can get ugly.
I graduated from the U, and I was bartending while I was trying to find my way in life, and I was recruited by Swinnerton and Wahlberg. Is that right? To be their quote unquote superintendent. I had just gotten out of college, and they had completed the federal building.
Yes.
And so they needed someone to go through the whole building and essentially go through all the change orders, what was completed and what wasn't completed yet by the subs on that big building and making sure it was tracked. And that was my job as they were completing the project and moving on to another one. And then I got recruited by Senator McCain and my career evolved. But
little known facts about Amber Smith.
I know. So I can put that on my resume. I mean, you guys can hire me now. And
Definitely.
I have it as experience.
But so to end it up, and then when you get to a design build or you get to a CM at risk, the contractor is taking the risk. That's what it's called, a construction manager at risk. We guarantee a price, and we've come to that price through collaboration, cooperation, figuring out exactly what's what they need. And you want to come close to perfect. Nobody's perfect, I'll always say that, but you want to come close to perfect. That's the way to do it. And then if anything changes, if you've missed it or you messed up, that's on you. That's on the contractor. It doesn't cost the owner anything. But you've worked it through so well, and you've just studied it and met on it and talked about every process, that it works out in the end beautifully.
So that's the at-risk?
That's the at-risk.
And then design, build, construct?
Design, build, construct is where... let's back up. CM at risk is the owner still hires the architect, and then he hires the contractor, and then they all work together. Design, build, construct would be the owner hires the contractor, who then hires the architect, and the architect hires the engineers, and they all work for the contractor. So either way, it all works the same, because the contractor then, being a contractor, will always want to go through the same process of involving everyone, the owner and all the users, to make sure that they're putting they say it's a school, the chalkboard's in the right place, where everybody wants it. And especially on schools, why it's important. Every teacher wants something in a different room on a different wall.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess this goes back to Tim. So the state was trying to legislate that, I assume, all publicly funded projects.
Public schools.
Okay, only schools, public schools.
That's where they started.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that one member had heard concerns in his district, and I'm sure he was well intentioned at thinking he was saving taxpayer dollars by going that direction. But when he actually understood, and the other members understood the process and what reality was, then they were quick to change their minds and take it back to what we had established decades ago.
And I also think it's important to point out, years ago I worked for a large engineering firm, and we used to get contractors. We used to bring contractors in who would tell us, let us take your designers out to the field and show them how things are built. Because what would happen is that you get a designer who would design something that couldn't be built out in the field, and they would get really frustrated. So, with these other methods, these alternative delivery methods, you're working with the designer. The contractor's working with the designer and saying, well, we can't, that's not even possible to build it that way, so it's very, very helpful.
And I'm assuming that would make everyone better, right? Because you're on a job and you go through that process, and everyone learns a little bit more from each other, and then it elevates it to the next job. And
it's true collaboration.
Mm-hmm. So then, you quickly said a word earlier, materials. Mm-hmm. How have materials changed in construction? Materials
are a basic commodity. As a contractor, Barker does it as well as we do. We have to study them. We have to be up on them constantly, because at any given time, they fluctuate. Different things happen. Different countries need it. And it spikes, it lowers, it drops. And you need to know when you to be able to order and what materials to use to save the owner the most amount of money. And that's what CM at Risk or Design Build truly helps with, because we can pre-order, we can phase projects so that if we know that we need a bunch of steel, but we know that there's going to be a steel hike coming, we can order it early.
Yeah.
So what about innovation in materials, the actual physical, meat and potatoes of it, the block? What is everyone can't see that. Everyone's turning to Brad.
All right. Well, the innovations of material. There are
He's trying to pick his favorite one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it. There are constant innovations in material, and they construction is a business like any other, but we are a business of, we have to satisfy the owner, which means we have to do it of the highest quality. We have to do it expedient, and we have to do it cost effective and safely. And that safely should have been first. So that when new items come out, if they are true to those parameters, they get picked up immediately. There's all kinds of things that come out, different types of rebar that are of composite materials, different types of roadway that are of chewed up tires. One of the things I truly like are the playgrounds made of recycled material.
I think we all like those.
I like playing on them personally, but it's any chance you get, the parts that we truly like are any chance you get that you can reuse material and be responsible with the way you build. So different types of drywall, different types of board that are used. There's a myriad of things that you could list off, but the innovation is there. The need to be conscious of green, of building responsibly is there, and we're starting to make it cost effective as well.
So I'm going to talk about innovation in a different way.
Right.
So, Alice, I recently heard that the construction industry has some of the best parity between paid positions between men and women. True or false?
True. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the whole women thing, because one of the women at our office, Sandra Leip, she is the president of the Tucson chapter of the NAWIC, which is National Association of Women in Construction. She just told me a story about they offer scholarships, and they just had, and they try to bring in women into the workforce. So they bring in, maybe women who are looking to change their careers because they're not making enough money, or someone who's recently been divorced and now is trying to support a family. And she told me that they were offered a scholarship, and they just recently awarded one to a grandmother who she wanted to design clothes at one point, and it didn't work out. And it was funny because she said that she wanted to do celebrity design, and it just didn't work out. So I'll leave it at that. How's that? And so she is now working for an electric company, and so it's just people bringing in women. Conscientiously, because they have skill sets. And someone else was just telling me that they just saw some women hanging drywall, which a lot of men, if you've ever seen people who hang drywall, they got some guns. They got some big guns. So women are starting to be able to do that stuff. They're training, they're building up their bodies. Not any woman can do it. I certainly couldn't do it. But there are women out there who can do that kind of work and make a really good living at it.
So I remember a conversation I recently had, and it was back the skills-based matching, referring back to the platform we're trying to build. And it was Alice, a baker turned welder?
Yeah, she was a cake decorator. She was a cake decorator who, single mom, again, who is making minimum wage. And she took a class and realized it's those skills, her cake decorating skills, the stuff that she was doing. And I don't know anything about cake decorating either, but somehow those skills translated into welding. And so she became a welder and was...
I can see that.
Yeah, very happy. And another place where... kind of something that is a little bit more women focused, which is safety. Women can really pick up on the safety stuff, and I don't know if it's just in their nature, but they're really good at it.
From my point of view, I 100% agree, but they have women nowadays with the innovations. One of the other things I didn't mention is we're looking at a time of prefabrication. We're looking at a time of of robotics, of so much technology getting involved. Women are just as capable as the men, and we we find that they're, when we put them in positions of authority, it tends to be they're more to the point, to where they are checking everything and making sure everything gets done. It gets done properly.
And it probably goes back to some of those soft skills you were talking about earlier. Women are very good with the soft skills. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, I have to agree. I was going to say it. My wife, she is very good at getting everything done, and I'm very good at leaving big messes everywhere. So
the multitasker,
yeah,
right?
She's the multitasker. So you can obviously see, all of us know, and there's plenty of room everywhere. From welding to masonry to drywall to framing. Everything nowadays, you're no longer using a handsaw. You're no longer using a hammer. You're now using nail guns, skill saws, miter saws. Everything nowadays has put construction is on an equal ground. Anybody can do it.
And not to mention the people in the office. We need people who are estimators. They can be really good at that. Coordinators, project managers. Women are really good at that.
So what does the future of construction look like?
Let me get my crystal ball.
Well, what would you
things are changing a lot. It's like Brad said, you probably... I'm sure you've seen the videos on some of the Facebook or LinkedIn where you have robots, who can put up drywall, and you have robots that can lay bricks, and, they don't get tired, and they can work 24 hours a day, and they don't need a break, and they don't want to raise. So, so we're going to need people who can run those kinds of machines, because you do need a human touch. You need someone to watch them, and, is that working right? Or you're going to waste, $100,000 worth of materials on something that's being done wrong. So, yeah, I think that's one aspect of it.
Something that continues to come up and it is presented is the birth dearth. I think I'm saying that right. To where we have so many baby boomers retiring, and we aren't creating enough bodies to backfill that. And not to say that, families need to be having more children, but how do you offset that? And I think the technology is a portion of that, to where then the more robots you can, but we still need to figure out better ways of doing everything across the board. Yeah. And how else are you going to be able to sustain?
Well, technology helps with that too. We're not printing a lot of stuff anymore. A lot of stuff is electronic. Technology it will really help cut down the time frames, cut down the effort.
It's all about reducing manpower.
Yeah, or people power.
People power, exactly. So it's all about.
That one,
yeah, I did. Wonderful, Brad. It's all about reducing people power, and there will come a time when robots are utilized. Right now, when I say prefabrication, they're building buildings, complete buildings. Prisons are being built and shipped over here and put together with cranes, and they're all done. Pre-manufactured, wired, HVAC, plumbing, everything is there. So that helps the technology, like when we built the AC hotel, we laid that all out off of a GPS robot, a program that we purchased specifically for that to make sure that everything was in the right place on that hotel. Those things just take a five-person job and turn it into a one-person job. You're walking around with one keypad, and you're just checking and marking locations. But that being said, there is always going to be that building that takes the ingenuity of a company like Barker or a company like Lloyd, that it's not a cookie cutter. They're looking for their beauty. They're looking for something out of the ordinary. They're looking for something that you can't push out like Henry Ford would have, in a factory.
Yeah, something that requires true craftsmanship.
Right, and so there'll always be that point. But I do see a large industry that will break off from us. From us, I know for a fact, Lloyd, that will be into the pre-manufacture of buildings.
Yeah. And that was a good segue to my next question. Are there construction company startups? I mean, is that a thing? We know that in general in Tucson, innovation and entrepreneurship and startup companies is a huge buzzword, especially right now. Does that translate in construction? I mean, is it like you just said, a construction company comes up with new insulation?
Both.
I think so. Yeah.
It's
yeah,
both.
I think so. Yeah. It's
So-
just like anything.
Yeah. So what I see is the individual that's in a certain trade will come up with a better way to do that trade. But there are individuals that are pulling the Edison, that are inventing, that they're outside the realm, and they're finding better ways to do things and better materials to use, and they'll start up their own company. So there are startups. They're few and far between as actual single entities in our industry versus if you look out at the University of Arizona, I mean, they've got startups going on everywhere. That school is amazing. But for our industry, it's typically a company that is involved in that trade that will break off and better that trade, and that's how they will start their company.
So, Tim, what about policy-wise of innovation? What is the future, or maybe not even innovation, but what does the future hold policy-wise for the industry?
So we've had a lot of support in Arizona over the decades. Obviously, construction is one of the major contributors to our economy, and our leaders recognize that. I think for us, our focus on the next generation at the Capitol is going to be there for a long time. And one of the things that we're continuing to advocate for is the expansion of support for our JTED programs in the schools. I think a lot of us see, past eras where, you could go to a shop class or industrial arts program in any of the high schools and have that exposure. And in the 80s and 90s, just because of costs and other reasons, the school districts had to shut those programs down. And then the JTEDs emerged to kind of take the place of that, which we're very grateful for. But we just see a greater need all the time so that students, our organization sees pathways into the industry through high school, through community college, through trade school, through the universities. And so we want to see lawmakers continue to invest in that next generation and help to address the workforce issues for us. And that's probably an issue that we'll continue to pursue every year.
How is the college and the U of A helping the construction industry?
So we have a strong partnership with the engineering school, and it's not a new partnership. It's been one where we've worked together for many years, and I want to put a plug in here for our Lloyd Scholarship Program. The Lloyd family has been involved for a long time in supporting that, and we're very honored to be able to host their scholarship, and they do a great job helping to raise funds for that every year, and we have a special dinner with the students and give them their scholarships through the Lloyd Scholarship, and that's a very important partnership. We have started a chapter at the university, an ABA AGC chapter, and work closely with the student leaders of that chapter and our members, companies, Engage. Barker Contracting, again, is a big partner in that and hosted some of the student lunches last year. And it's been a very positive relationship, and one that we foresee continuing to grow in the future.
Are there any specialized programs that, if you were king for a day, you think would be the most impactful for the industry locally?
Oh, we'd love to see a construction management program down here at the U of A. Right now, it's obviously the sister university up in Phoenix that has that program, and ABA.
University that shall not be named.
Yeah, ABA works with them as well up at our sister office in Phoenix. But I just think there's a real need for us to continue to expand those programs, and we'd love to see that down here.
Brad, same answer?
Exact same answer.
Alice, you hearing the same thing?
Yes.
More or less. So how about going broader? Not necessarily just a program that the university puts on. If you were queen for a day, what would you like to see in the construction industry or add to, change, what have you?
Wow, that's a tough one. I don't know. I immediately jump to safety. I'd like to see that no one ever gets hurt again on a construction site.
That's so benevolent of you.
I know.
We'll come back to you.
Women are good with safety.
Tim.
I think just a general understanding by folks that there are really valuable opportunities and careers. You could really find a good salary and be able to support your family through careers in construction. And it's so diverse. There's so many different things you can do, from the design level all the way through, hands-on construction to managing. There's just a huge opportunity. I wish people could understand that.
Can I change my answer?
I mean, in my head, I was going the same thing. That was mine too.
That was good, Tim.
Brad?
Yeah, I still get to go. So I'm in agreement with Tim. But what I was going to say is I'd like to see the vision that you're putting forth, where there's actually access for everybody, access and information, and I know it sounds trite, but one place they all go and look, and that spreads them out and shows them what their next step is. That's the hardest thing for kids, for ex-cons, for veterans to do at this point in time is figure out what's next. How do I get into this? I get calls all the time. My son wants to be a welder. What does he do? And I have to point them in a direction. And the obvious direction now is get them hooked up with a company, but that's not the true direction that there should be. What you're talking about, that's a vision, and that's correct. There should be one point where, like a spider web, everything goes out from there, and you can just go to it, and you understand what to do next. That's what I'd like to be if I was queen for a day.
Another great visual.
So I want to be a little self-serving on that one. So with this vision of it, we are going to be implementing it, like I said, with the construction industry first, to be able to onboard the career exploration, the career paths, etc. But there's a second way that we are also looking at implementing it too, and that's over in the 85705 zip code. To the credit of the city of Tucson and Arizona State and Pima Community College, somewhere along the way, they all realized they were working within that zip code on different initiatives. And someone said, why don't we all work together? And they are doing the Thrive in the 05 initiative. What my vision for that is to be able to take this technology that we have earned, I guess if you can, for the next 3 years, that we're funding for the next 3 years, and lay it in that zip code, which for our listeners is one of our lowest income area of the working poor. And if we can have success in being able to build a coalition there, get access to those individuals that are working in that area or are business owners in that area, and see what skill sets we have in there, and look at it kind of from the backwards way, I guess you will, because once we launch the entire platform, it's going to be the forwards of you have your talent there and you have your employer, and we're going to base it on industry. But going backwards, what skills do we have in a particular area, and what skills do we need in that particular area, and then connect it that way. And doing it also through those schools. We've got Flowing Wells, we got Amphi High School, middle school, all right there. So we can really, I say the tree, I like your visual better of the spider web, because it really is that. And we know that careers are no longer, I have to try to do this, say it because normally I can wave my arms. Careers used to be very linear in moving like a building upwards, and now we know that it's more of a car changing lanes across a freeway. And if we can be able to use this technology, process, and people, because it takes all three, this is not plug and chug, I think we can affect some real systematic change in our community, starting with our lowest area. And be able to build those resources, or build the access to available resources in those areas of transportation, housing, food security and childcare.
Yeah, and use it as a template in other communities
That's
once
right.
you've verified that it works.
That's right. And that really is the goal. It is, this vision that I have is to create a national platform. And we actually do have some traction, federally, as you're aware, to be able to try to get that done. So, as regarding talent attraction and retention, we can end up being the leaders in the country. And hopefully that would alleviate some of the strain you're having in being able to fill positions. Any final comments?
Appreciate your focus on this, on our industry. It's needed.
We're just really proud of our industry and want people to understand it and appreciate it and come be a part of it. And we thank the Chamber for putting us at the top of your list for inclusion in your project.
Brad?
Yeah, just thank you very much for having me here today and allowing me to speak. I'm appreciative of all of these organizations and all that you do to further our industry.
How about contact information? Why don't we start top going bottom? Tim, Arizona Builders Alliance, best way to contact you. What programs are there available for people to get involved in?
So probably come to our website. Just Google us, azbuilders.org, and to get on our website, and all of our programs are there. Our contact information is there. And I'm available anytime if you want to have us come talk to kids or talk to your organization about what we do.
What about Construction Career Days?
So Construction Career Days is an important community event that happens in November, and I think over 2,000 students are expected this year to be a part of that. A great opportunity to have your students check out the industry and see what's available.
And the scholarships that from the Lloyd Family Foundation, or just Lloyd Family Scholarships application process?
Contact ABA and we can help connect you into the scholarship application process.
Brad, someone wants to reach out to your company. What's the best way?
Well, typically, the best way would be to go through our website as well, which is lloydconstruction.com, or call our front office, 520-884-9821. Or, you could always email me personally, Brad at lloydconstruction.com.
Alice.
Barker1.com. It's fairly easy. As in
the number one, or O-N-E?
O-N-E. Thank you. It's barkerone.com, and I always make sure to spell that out when I'm telling people that. So thank you. That's the easiest way, and you can contact any of us through that through our website. And
I'm going to take it that both Lloyd, Barker actively hiring throughout the year?
Sure.
Give either one of us a call. Absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone being here today. Again, thank you so much to Tim B. from the Arizona Builders Alliance as the Southern Arizona Director, Brad Lloyd, Vice President over there at Lloyd Construction, and Alice Templeton from Barker Contracting. This is Amber Smith, joining you on this August edition of News from the Chamber. Thank you so much for tuning here. Business Radio X studio at Stewart Title on Broadway.